Start recording this. Okay, so Tailwind, right? So you remember Bootstrap. In Bootstrap, we have a preset of classes, right? CSS classes that we can use in our code. This was essentially Bootstrap, right? So Bootstrap provided a big set of classes, but most of these classes are solve different problems, right? And the main problem is around components. So components and typography and layouts. So for example, we have classes like container, row, columns, and then we have the responsive version of the column, so column large, column this, column that, right? We have classes for all those type of variants in layouts. And then we have typography classes, and then we have components. When I say components, we have cards, we have accordions, we have galleries, we have buttons, we have form items. So everything that you pretty much need in an app is already pre-built for you, right, in Bootstrap. But the thing is that, for example, in Bootstrap, if you want to make a button that looks like a button with certain aspect, you would put the classes, if I remember correctly, btn success. If this is a success button, so button that is green with the white text with certain size, etc. Right? And then I will put here something like click me, and then that's it. That's all I needed to make this button look green with the green background with the white text, etc. Right? So that was Bootstrap. Now Bootstrap also has a bunch of flex classes, right? And if you check the Bootstrap documentation, you will see that those classes are in a section called utility classes, right? It's because Bootstrap is really constrained. Bootstrap is really constrained about what type of interfaces you can build, right? And you probably, some of you noticed that limitation when you were building the car, the random car, right? Because you say, well, if I want to make this car this exact width with this exact height, then how do I represent that in Bootstrap, right? There is no way. So they also added some utility classes. And these utility classes are very limited in Bootstrap because Bootstrap is not a utilities first CSS kit. It's basically, we have a bunch of components already pre-built, we have some layout, and then if you need something extra, we have this utility. So some padding, some margins, some flex directives that you can use, etc. Now, what is a utility class? In Bootstrap, a utility class is something like this. It's something like dflex. So if I want to make let's say a div that has things on the edges of the div, right? In flex, we will make a container. We say flex row, and then we will make the flex duration row, and then we make the justify content property space between, right? So in Bootstrap, you can say that by putting dflex justify content between. And then inside you can put the divs that will be space around your div, right? So this will basically be a div. Whatever this div is contained, I don't care. And it will have two elements, one to the left and one aligned to the right, whatever the width of these elements are, right? And there is limited support for saying, okay, what's the width of that element? Actually, in Bootstrap, we have almost 4 or 5 widths, like we have 25%, we have 50%, 75%, they're really limited, right? But the thing I care now is the utility approach, right? I don't have to write, notice that I'm not writing CSS, but I still know that dflex means a flex container. And I know that justify content between means justify content space between. So what I'm saying is that these utility classes represent certain CSS properties, right? Already applied. So that means that I don't have to ever write CSS. I don't have to go to the CSS file and make some changes there, right? I can just write style with this style classes. Yeah, go ahead. Now, Tailwind took this approach and just make it a lot better, right? Because Tailwind is, first of all, a utilities first, how would I call this? Let me see how they call themselves because I don't remember. Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS is a utility first CSS framework, right? So it's a way to solve the CSS problem, so maintaining, creating CSS, but making utility first. So that means that Tailwind is essentially a lot of classes, all utility classes. And we will learn some of those classes today. Of course, if you feel that you need to write something that you don't know how to write, you can go to the documentation and see how to make it on with Tailwind, right? So let me give you an example of a CSS first, a utility first CSS framework. So for example, the same design that we had before here in Tailwind will be something like flex. That means this is a display flex. Flex row, that means this is a flex direction row. Space between, that will be justify between. And even if I want to align the things on the center, that will be items center, right? So if I put two divs here, one and two, this will be exactly the same as I have in Bootstrap, right? It will be a row. It will be one div on the right, one div on the left, because there are space between. If I have three, remember space between will space them over the container, correct? Now, what else we can do with Bootstrap? By the way, if this one is smaller, it will still be center, right? Because we make item center. We added item center. So that's the align items shortcut. So align items center, right? And now my row is space on the edges, space between, but aligned to the center, right? Now, how do I change, for example, background, text color, etc.? Well, you have a BG dash, yeah. You have BG dash, and then you say the color, so whatever, several colors that we can use, like, I don't know, green. And then you put the shade, 300, well, green. So that means the background will be green 300. If I want to change the text color, I can say text white, of course this is white, or I can make it text red, or let's make it yellow 800. So now this will be a green row where the text will be bright yellow, right? Because that's the text color that I'm applying. So what I'm saying is that there are hundreds of these classes that you can use. And there are different sets of those that we can use, right? That's the point of this. Now, let's say I want to make this div over here. I want to make it rounded, and I want to give some information here, info, and I want to have that same pattern, right? How do we make that? Well, we can apply the classes here, and those will be, for example, to make the rounded borders. Sorry?
Radius.
Yeah, that's the radius, the border radius property. But in Tailwind, it has a different name. It's rounded. So you have rounded, that makes it rounded. If you want the rounded full, that means rounded. So there is different. What I'm saying is that every property, for example, rounded, is the border radius. Now, if you want to modify how much rounded is it, then you have dash, and then you have small, large, medium, Excel, or full. That's all documented, right? Now, full means full rounded, right? No matter the size of the element. Now, if I want to just to be Excel, I can say rounded Excel. By the way, let me copy this and put it on the play. Of course, I haven't applied. You see? Oh, the text is yellow 800. It's very dark. So let's do like this. You see it there, right? It's a green div. The two elements. By the way, there is an element on the right here. This is pretty small. Actually, let's put a. Right, left, right. Rounded Excel probably is too big. Let's keep it at rounded. That's a little bit better. Now, if I want to add some padding, I can go to the Tailwind documentation. I want to say, okay, how do I add padding? Well, there is a P0 for all the padding. So removing the padding, that is depending on what type of padding I want to apply, is all type of conditions, right? So P dash a value. Let's do it. So P4, that means padding all around. If I do PX, that's padding only on the left and right. If I do PY, that's only padding top and bottom. If I do padding T, it's only padding top, padding bottom. So the same thing applies to margins, right? If I do margin 4, then now is the margin, the one that I'm applying. And let's do both. Now, what's the size of that padding? 4 is not 4 pixels. It's a multiple of 4. So P4 means 4 by 4, 16 pixels, right? And for the lowest one, you have like I will have some padding here. For the lowest values, you have like if I don't want to give 4 and I want to give half, there is like a 0.5, and that's like 2 pixels, right? Or like a 1.5, and that's 6 pixels. So on the smaller values, I have some control of what can I do there. For the bigger values, we don't. It's like 10. It's like that's it, right? But again, that's the idea behind this nomenclature, right? So as you can see, now I'm changing the whole styling based on utility classes. I'm just applying classes. I haven't touched CSS yet. I probably won't have to touch it anytime, right? So that's the left. What about the right? What if I want to make the right, let's say, background red and text white? What classes should I apply? Anybody?
Is it text color or text? Or
Text color, text, and then the color. So text white. So now the text is white. Now, for the background,
BG red.
BG red, and then the variant that I want, right? And then I can do some padding. Let's say padding 2, and then I can make it rounded. You see, rounded. There's a bunch of rounded alternatives. And what if and this we use it on the last class. What if I want to rotate it like 180 degrees and make it look it upside down?
Rotate.
There is a rotate, but if you don't know exactly what that class is named, you can go to the documentation and say, well, if I want to rotate something, there you go. All the variants that you can use. 0, 1, 2, and that's the class that they're going to apply, right? So if I want rotate 180, I apply that class, and I say rotate 180, and now it's upside down, right? Actually, let's do 90. Cool. So what I'm saying is that everything is already a class. Okay? Now, these are pretty basic, right? By the way, we also have, if I want to, let me remove this text because it's kind of driving me crazy. So what if I want the text bigger, right? So we have text, and then we have small, medium, well, it's medium? Okay, we have text itself, large, medium. Oh yeah, medium is a right value. Excel, for Excel, right? Let's do large. So we have the typography. If I want the font to be bolder, I can say font semi-bold or font bold. Right? So I am applying classes and classes and classes. Everything that you want to change has a utility class. Okay? That's the first part of Tailwind. It's just utility classes for everything. Anything that you can do, anything you want to do, has a class. Now, let's change something else. Let's make this a button. Right? Now they are buttons. Notice that they didn't change visually because they were a div, now they're a button, same thing, right? Now you see that buttons, they should somehow show that they are being hovered, right? So there are special classes that we can apply to they have like a hover. So this is like a special state. So hover means when the button is hover. Now I would change the color here, the background. I was using slate, right? So slate, it will be a little bit darker. And now when I hover the button, it's darker. In CSS, this will be this button class, column, hover, this other exchange, right?
So it's certainly faster, but how do you then get the consistency, right? Because part of CSS is you design it once and you just apply it across the class without.
That's
this is almost like going back to inline styling, where you
yes. Good question. Good question. So the point is that it doesn't make sense if you think about it from the let's build a website point of view, right? Because you will have to write a lot of these classes. The point is this is mostly used for component-oriented frameworks. So when we get to React, it will all click because then you say, oh, I only have to write this once, and I have to do it, don't do it again. Because every time you put that component, the component is the button or whatever area of the interface you put, that's it. You don't have to write it anymore. It will come in style with the CSS classes that you apply, right? So yeah, totally makes sense. It will be impossible to style a whole website using this, but it's essentially components. So like if I go to any website, for example, this website, and I check this thing over here, let me see if I can find the right. Okay, this one. So you see, these are the classes for this div, right? And they probably have only one. There's only one in the page, but that's the style of that thing. Well, there's nothing inside, of course. But what I'm saying is that, maybe not this, something that's repeated on the page. Like for example, every car here, you see there's multiple of them, right? Every car. So every car has the same, I think the car starts here. Yeah, the car starts here. So every car has its own styles. But if I check the other car, it will have the same set styles because it's the same component repeated over and over. And every time you put the component on the page, it will have all these classes, right? And it will make it look all the same. Okay, so yeah, it's not meant to be used for big websites, for marketing websites, unless you are using components. It's more for components. So when you are building an app, for example, you want to build a button, right? You have something like this. This is my button. I know that that will be my button. You see, it has a hover. It has the. Now, what if I want to add a shadow? Oh, I can go here and say, okay, put shadow. Now it has a shadow. You see the shadow there. Maybe I only want the shadow when it's hover. So I do hover, shadow. You see the shadow when it's hover? So you can add those things, basically add it. Now for the project that we will build in last week, actually last Wednesday, it made total sense because it was just saying, okay, I want to create a car. And the beauty of Tailwind is that you're not constrained to whatever values they're giving you, right? So for example, if I want the width, now you have certain widths, with 0, with a px, 1 pixel, right? You have all the widths there. You have, these are percentages width, like Bootstrap has, like 1 to 12, 3, 12, there is all the versions, all the variants, sorry. But you can also do custom width. So you can do width 300 pixels, and that works, right? Because you can still have something that is for 300 pixels. Now, if I want to make the height 700 pixels, let's make it smaller because otherwise we're not seeing it. Right? I can just make it the width and height that I want. You're not limited. You can use pixels, you can use percentage, you can use whatever you want, right? And you can still put it in a class. You don't have to go to CSS and change that. So in Bootstrap, there is no way to do that, right? Because you have to go to CSS and add it in CSS. Now here you can do it, okay? Now, what about flex, right? So flex direction. So we can do column or row, whatever you want, and you can justify center, items, center. And now everything is, so you have classes for flex, you have classes for background, you have classes for typography, you have classes for pretty much everything, right? Now, how do you control the mobile or responsive designs? That's the only part that we're missing here. So this is a mobile design, right? You see, you can make it bigger. So how do you make it work with mobile design, right? So for that, let me remove this. Let's make this red 400 and hide the screen. So it's basically taking the whole height of the screen, and it's the full width. By default, div is the whole width of the screen. Or we can do, okay, let's make this 4/12 of the screen, and the margin will be auto. So it's centering on the screen, right? Notice that I'm just writing CSS classes here. Now, this is usually, okay, let's do this. This is how it will look in a normal desktop, right? But if I go to a mobile, I want to use the full width, right? And don't have the 8/12 of the screen, right? Because if I go smaller, then you see if I go smaller, then I'm still using 8/12 of the screen. So what I want is to have a version, say, okay, this will only apply to medium desktops or maybe large desktops. If it's smaller, then just use the full width. Actually, I will have to put MD because, you see? So if it's MD is like a tablet, will be 8/12. If I go smaller, then it's the full width. You see? Now, this thing in Bootstrap can only be applied most of the times to layouts. But in Tailwind, you can say, okay, it's red in 400, but let's do, if it's MD 400 and the regular color is green. Because it's mobile first, right? So I'm changing the stats when it's a bigger screen. So if I go smaller, boom, now it's green, right? So I can apply responsive properties to pretty much everything. I can say, okay, the default way to show, because it's mobile first, right? That's the idea behind this. It's like if you don't put anything on it, it applies to all the styles, all the widths, starting with small. And if you change it, you say MD, that means for MD or starting MD, use this size or this color, right? So that's why I'm applying this color when it's tablet, and I'm applying this size when it's a tablet. Okay, so I have way to define classes for different screen size. Okay, mobile first because the default style will apply to mobile. Cool, questions? Okay, so let's do one more thing here. So to show that, so div hello. Let's put another div here. Say MDC 27. Right. So I have these two. Of course, I want them to be in a single row. So flex row and justify between. Okay. Now they are looking like this, and what I'm going to do is saying, okay, the default one is flex call, and in MD is a row. So if I make it smaller, now they are. Okay. Of course, this is very contrived example. Cool. So let me go through the examples that I have. So first of all, background colors. We already know is BG, the colors. Now the colors come from Tailwind documentation. So you have a color palette that is already, let me see if I can find them. So this is the color palette that they have. So basically every color has a gradient, right? From, I think it's from 50 to 800 or 900 or 950. Well, that's a new version. You have pretty much every color there. Actually, there is a way to see it in a better, should be a way to see it, all the different colors here. So these are all the colors. You have slate, gray, zinc, neutral, stone, red, orange. I mean, you get the idea. It's basically every color is pretty much there. And the nice thing is that you can customize it. For example, my company has its own identity colors. It's mostly like purple or violet, but it's a particular shade of violet. And we can say, okay, this is the main color, and then they will build the rest of the colors, right? So even that is already handled for you. Or you can set the color yourself, right? So if you want a color that you want to use, and let's say red, this red here, instead of, you can customize it like this. So you can also create your own custom color right there on the fly. So whatever you want, that's available for you. That's for backgrounds. If you want the text colors, same thing. You have the text dash property. By the way, there is a lot of text dash. So because there is a lot of classes around text that you can use, you can make it text uppercase, for example, or dash it, or not dash, like on the line. You have a bunch of classes already for that too. It's not that we use it pretty often, but it's also available. Of course, padding and margins, you already know the class names is P or M. So P dash is everything, so you're setting the 4 edges. PX is all the horizontal, PY is the vertical, and the same for margins, right? We have flexbox. Flex is the main class that we use. We have flex row. We also have the alignment. You have item center, justify center. There's a bunch of them actually. So all the possible variants are already listed there. And we have also grid. We never learn grid when we're doing CSS, but grid's a pretty good one actually. Especially when you're building scenes that are in the tables, right? So you can say, okay, this is a grid, and you say grid calls 3, and now you have a grid of 3, right? So you can say div a. You see, it's already a grid of 3. And every element is already the size of the grid. So if I do BG red 100, you see it takes the whole space of that grid. Now, the other nice thing about it is that all grid items have the same height, no matter the height of this. So, because it's a grid, right? And a grid, everything has usually the same width and the same height. So if this one, let's say this is a BG green, right? And I make it height 5 or 6. Oh, sorry, height 2. You see, all of them are at least that high. So grids are really good when you are making data representation, especially tables. It's really good for tables. Cool, so that's a grid. By the way, you also have more ways to create this grid. You also have grid rows, you have several combinations there. And the other thing that you have is the gap, right? You can say gap 3, and now they're separated by 12 pixels automatically, right? Cool. You have grid, you have responsive design. We talk about this. So basically, you have shortcuts for specifying the classes that you want to apply in every one of the breakpoints. So you have SM, MD, large, XL, and 2XL. Those are the default breakpoints. So every class that you have, every utility class that you have, you can put the breakpoint colon class. That will apply only to that breakpoint upwards, right? So if I'm applying to SM, that will apply to all of them, right? Because SM, MD, LG, and if you apply to MD, that means that SM will not be applied, and then MD up, right? Cool. So we also have hover, focus. Of course, hovers, you know what it is. Focus. Focus is a different property, by the way. It's only applied to inputs because it's the user is entering information in that particular input. And we, of course, we have typography. We have the text, the font weight, leading. I'm not sure. Oh, the line height. That's the leading. Cool. Cool. So that's, in essence, what Tailwind is, right? We can build pretty much anything. Now, the drawback of this is that, of course, you have to build your own components. So you don't have a button that is already pre-built. You have to build your own. There is not a collapsible that's already pre-built. You have to build your own. You have to build your own components. But the benefit is that you can pretty much build anything with the same classes, right? No two companies that are using Tailwind look the same, right? This is using Vercel. I could show you my company's website is also using Tailwind. It's very different. So a lot of companies that use Tailwind. Actually, if you go to the showcase, you will see them, some of them there. Oh, hey, ChatGPT uses Tailwind. Cool. Now you can go to where ChatGPT. So Shopify, Lemon Squeezy. Lemon Squeezy is like Stripe. You probably heard Stripe. That's similar. Yeah, Loom is very famous for recordings. a lot of people basically. GitHub Next, Planet Scale, NASA, Mongolia. Microsoft is using Tailwind. Interesting. I didn't know that. Oh, Google. Good. The other thing is, I think the nice thing about them is that that's why so many different companies are using it, is because they are not affiliated to Facebook or Instagram or Google or Amazon. So any of these companies can use them because they have this mentality that if not, it's not built by us, we are not going to use it, right? So Google is very famous for that, right? But I guess in this case they are open to use it. So again, pretty common. Now you have components here. This is how they make money. By the way, I'm not sponsoring. I'm not recommending that you go and buy their components. But it's essentially a set of components that's already pre-built, and you pretty much have everything here. So if you're building, like if you have a budget and you're building an app, like professionally building an app, you probably want to buy the solution. But you can also build it yourself. So not necessary. Cool. Actually, there is a set of templates here. That is probably. Oh, actually, those are paid as well. No. Wait, not here. Blog showcase. Wait, there's a website. Some Tailwind. That's the other thing. Tailwind. It's like a free website that has a bunch of designs that people made, right? Tailwind components. Oh, here. Yeah, it's a repository of components built by the community, right? So, it's a lot of things here. Let's say if we can find a car. Okay, someone made this, right? And you can see the code. That's the code. Someone made this. It's a good way to learn, I guess. Like for example, oh, the picture is not there, or something like this, right? Like you can copy this code, paste it in here, and it should show me the same thing, right? Because the classes are the same. I don't need to change anything there. Cool. Oh, it has like an effect. That's cool. Great. So that's pretty much it in terms of Tailwind. What I'm proposing is let's build, at least for this, and we can see how that goes. Today's project, the random card generator using Tailwind. And for that, I share this repo. So the same repo that we have, the vanilla hello repo, the template that we have in the Academy that uses Bootstrap, this one uses Tailwind. So you can use this as the starting point for your project. Instead of using the vanilla hello with Bootstrap from the Academy, this one already has Tailwind. And by the way, installing Tailwind here was super simple. Let me show you. It was just adding one thing to the HTML. This. That's it. So only with this, now we have Tailwind in there. Oh, by the way, I changed the. Cool, so works the same way, npm start, and we should see.
But in this case, we're not going to be doing any adjustments to the style that will all be done in the HTML.
Yeah, we need
like the
to.
color we would do in the styles.
Yeah, well, there's several ways to do it, right? So you can apply the class, or you can just change the style, color. Yeah, whatever's easier. You see? Oh, I already had the card built with. The template doesn't have this, by the way. This is mine because I was working on it. But yeah. Oh, yeah, these are my changes. Let me change it back. Okay, now it should show. Yeah, this is what the template is. Okay. Cool. Let me stop this.